Welcome to Ozarks Crime Watch. Tonight, we delve into a case that has haunted Springfield, Missouri and the nation for over 3 decades. The baffling disappearance of the Springfield Three. What began as a night of celebration ended in an enduring mystery, leaving behind more questions than answers. This is Ozarks Crime Watch. And welcome back to Ozarks Crime Watch. My name is Josh Shackles, and today we are investigating the case of the Springfield Three. This is a case that has haunted us for decades now, and it's really mysterious because we just absolutely don't know what happened to these women. So let's get right into it and meet our investigators.
Hey everybody, it's Connor back this week. I'm excited to get back into this all with you and kind of dig through this.
Hey everybody, it's Joe, and glad to be back this week. Lifelong resident, followed this case from the very beginning, and looking forward to getting some different perspectives on it.
Hi, I'm Susan. When this happened, I lived in Miami, Oklahoma, but I've been in Joplin for about 15 years now, and I've heard a bit about it, and I'm really interested in listening to this from a curious viewpoint and ask some really deep diving questions.
Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Moore with the Ozarks Crime Watch crew. I work in crisis intervention and social work, so I tend to think about these cases in terms of what might have been going on behind the scenes or what signs were missed. I'm familiar with the area, so the Springfield 3 case has always stood out to me. I'm really excited to be here.
Hey y'all, I'm Whitney. I'm a lifelong mystery lover, true crime junkie, and the kind of person who can't resist a good whodunit. I'm looking forward to digging into this case that I followed for many years.
Hey, it's Raina. I am a lifelong local, super interested in history and true crime, and I'm definitely excited to be here this week and see what we have going on, what kinds of theories we can come up with, and maybe get a little bit closer to finding an answer.
Good evening, y'all. I'm Sal. I'm glad to be part of the Ozarks Crime Watch team. 1992 was the year that I graduated from high school. And during the time where all of us were celebrating and looking ahead, it's kind of crazy that 3 women in Springfield disappeared without a trace. Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. Their story has stayed with me ever since that time. It's a haunting reminder of just how fragile life can be. I'm glad to take a moment to remember them and also see if there's something that we can figure out that may add up now.
Hello, my name is Amy, and I am from Joplin. However, this is kind of the first time that I'm going to be learning about this case. I don't remember hearing about it, and I'm excited to dive into the details.
So it's been 33 years. The episode that we are recording right now will air on June 7th, which is 33 years from the date of their disappearance. Wow. Let's get right into the case file.
June 6th, 1992. For 19-year-old Suzie Streeter and her 18-year-old friend Stacy McCall, it was a night of triumph. They had just graduated from Kickapoo High School. After attending several graduation parties, their initial plan to stay at a friend Janelle Kirby's crowded house changed. Instead, in the early hours of June 7th, around 2:15 a.m., Suzie and Stacy headed to Suzie's home at 1717 East Delmar Street, where she lived with her 47-year-old mother, Sherrill Levitt. Sherrill, a cosmetologist, had last been heard from around 11:15 p.m. the previous night, talking to a friend on the phone about mundane plans to paint a chest of drawers. This was the last known contact for any of the 3 women. The following morning, June 7th, friends began to worry. Suzie and Stacy were supposed to meet them for a trip to the Whitewater amusement park, but they never showed. Around 9 a.m., Janelle Kirby and her boyfriend went to the Delmar Street house. They found the front door unlocked. Inside, the scene was eerie. The women were gone, but all their personal belongings remained. Purses, money, car keys, clothing, jewelry, and even Sherrill's cigarettes. A notable detail, as she was a heavy smoker. Stacy's clothes from the previous night were neatly folded. The beds of Sherrill and Suzie appeared to have been slept in. The television in Suzie's room was on, displaying static. The family's Yorkshire Terrier, Cinnamon, was in the house and seemed agitated. One of the few signs of anything amiss was a shattered glass globe on the porch light. The light bulb itself was intact. Tragically, this broken glass was swept up by Janelle's boyfriend before police arrived, potentially destroying crucial evidence. Later, Stacy's mother, Janice McCall, arrived, and finding the scene deeply unsettling, called the police. While there, Janice listened to what she described as a strange message on the answering machine, but it was accidentally erased after being played once. a devastating loss of a potential clue. Adding to the strangeness, while Janelle Kirby was at the house, she answered 2 disturbing phone calls from an unidentified male, making sexual innuendos. Suzie had previously complained about receiving prank calls. The investigation began immediately, but it was hampered from the start. Police estimated that 10 to 20 people had been through the house before it was secured, potentially contaminating the crime scene. Despite an extensive investigation by Springfield police, the FBI, and other agencies, which has processed over 5,000 tips, no arrests have ever been made, and the women have never been found. Several leads and persons of interest have emerged over the years. On New Year's Eve 1992, a man called the America's Most Wanted hotline with information police believed was prime knowledge, but the call was disconnected, and he never called back. In 1993, a search of farmland in nearby Webster County yielded items of interest, but the results were sealed, and officially, nothing significant was reported. In 2007, a ground-penetrating radar scan under a parking garage at Cox Hospital, prompted by a tip, revealed 3 anomalies consistent with a grave site, but authorities deemed the tip improbable and did not excavate. Convicted kidnapper Robert Craig Cox, who lived in Springfield at the time, claimed in 1997 that he knew the women were murdered and their bodies would never be found. Police, however, have always considered him an unreliable source. Another name that has surfaced is Larry Dwayne Hall, a suspected serial killer. Former Deputy Lori Howard stated Hall confessed to her his involvement, claiming the bodies were in the Mark Twain National Forest, though Hall was a known chronic confessor. Suzie Streeter's ex-boyfriend, Dustin Reckla, and his associate, Michael Clay, also drew suspicion. Suzie was reportedly set to testify against them in a cemetery vandalism case, leading to theories of retaliation, but they were never charged in connection with the disappearances. Today, more than 32 years later, the Springfield 3 are still officially listed as missing. Sherrill Levitt and Suzie Streeter were declared legally dead in 1997. The case remained stalled due to a lack of new compelling evidence. Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, has tirelessly advocated for answers, keeping the case in the public eye. A reward of $43,000 still stands for information leading to their location and the prosecution of those responsible.
First impressions.
So we've got 3 women that disappear without a trace. All of their stuff is at home. There's no sign of what has happened to them. Where could they have gone?
It makes me wonder if it was someone they knew. Of course, they couldn't really prove if there was any forced entry. So I've just always wondered that as well.
Or even if it was just someone that they didn't see as a threat.
Yeah. Let them in.
It almost had to be the case. And, you know, their stuff is there. Their purses, their money, all of those things are left behind. So it's not...
The dog.
Yeah, the dog's there.
The cars.
The cars are there. So that's not someone's motivation. It wasn't a stranger coming to rob them.
I find it really odd that you can pretty much have 3 adults just disappear in the middle of the night. And I know obviously it's going on 33 years now, and so like a lot different time, and so just weird they could just disappear like that, right on pretty much a main drag in Springfield that's bigger now than it was then, but man, just without a trace.
It seems to me that points to somebody who probably knew them, because there was apparently a lot less commotion, I guess, than there would be if it was a person who didn't have their trust, it looked like.
I'm really interested to figure out who the target was, because Suzie and Stacy were not supposed to be at the house. So were the younger girls the target and they were followed since they didn't really have any solid plans, or was the target the mother and the girls come into something?
What are your thoughts about, so in the morning, Janice, the grandma, comes over to the house and she hears a strange message on the answering machine but actually deletes it. Do you think that was like the piece of the puzzle that could have solved it, or was it just, you know, maybe someone calling and pranking their answering machine?
I feel like it wasn't that easy to delete messages on answering machines. You know what I mean? And so my initial thought is, I wonder how or if Janice is connected somehow.
Like maybe she was trying to hide something on the voicemail.
Maybe, yeah.
I think in 1992 it would have been on a cassette tape, a little small cassette tape. So it would have been difficult to delete that. How do you delete it off of a cassette tape?
Well,
You
really,
rewind
you
it,
know, we
and then
had
you
no
delete it.
idea what type of answering machine they had. In 1992, there were several types, and they were starting to introduce the ones that weren't cassette driven. They were analog, I believe. They were starting to introduce that. And so without knowing what type of answering machine it was, I think it's hard to really speculate on why it got deleted. What we do know is it did. I tend to think those calls were all part of the pranks that they had been receiving. And I think that maybe that call was also a prank that was made when nobody was there to pick it up.
So you think not connected? You don't think it's connected?
I don't think those calls are connected in any way, shape, or form to those girls missing. It doesn't make any sense.
Did they determine where the calls originated from? That technology existed?
I don't know. That's not...
The question that hits me the most is, how do you get 3 women out of a quiet residential neighborhood without causing a commotion? Like, if that happened in my neighborhood, even if it was a half block down the road, we'd hear it. We'd look outside. What's going on?
You mean to tell me that there are neighborhoods out there that exist that like don't have a Gladys Kravitz? Like surely every street has one of those people that's, you know, always up or always nosing around. That may or may not be me in my neighborhood, but I mean, surely someone
There was
would have to see or hear something.
Right, shortly before 7 a.m. on the morning of the 7th, there was a neighbor that reported a van, an olive green van, driving down with a man in the back of it yelling, "Don't do anything stupid," and a quote-unquote terrified female blonde driver that resembled Suzie Streeter. So that didn't get reported for several days because according to police reports, the person that reported it was scared.
Theory time.
There are a lot of potential suspects in this case. Let's talk about them.
Our suspects, well, the first one that comes to mind is Bart, because he's the brother, and they tend to look at family first to eliminate. And Bart was eliminated early with a rock-solid alibi, and he also passed a polygraph. And again, what would his motive have been? Do anything like that. There's Dustin Rekla. He was Susie's ex. He used her car with some other people to go and desecrate a mausoleum and steal around $30 worth of gold teeth, and Suzie broke that relationship off. So that's another one of the suspects. Does anybody want to talk about any of the others?
There's also been theories over the years that it was one of Cheryl's exes. So based on her relationships that she had.
One of the suspects that they've looked at a lot is Robert Craig Cox.
Yep.
He's currently doing a life sentence in Texas, and also robbery, aggravated robbery, that is. He has said in 1997 during a interview with an investigative reporter by the name of Stephen Graves that he knew exactly where the women's bodies were and nobody would ever find them. He also stated that he would never tell anybody where the bodies were until after his mother passed away.
So I read somewhere that when they were searching the house, in a newspaper rack, they found a hand-drawn picture that had the phrase, "Use ruse of gas man checking for leak." And some people have tied him to that, but I don't know why.
He was a former employee of the utilities company, and that was one of the things he did.
That gives opportunity.
But to come in the middle of the night, like at the time
we don't really have a time like a
Well, there's a window between 2:30 a.m. when they got home and around 9 a.m. when they were really seemed to be missing. So it looks like that somebody coming using a ruse of a gas man at like 3, 4, 5, 6 a.m.
And
seems
the
a
neighbors
little.
reporting around 6:45, 7 a.m. that
The van.
the van that came down the neighborhood with
But
people driving.
how do we know that this person wasn't already there with Sherrill? I mean, how long?
Like, could they have walked in?
I thought about that.
Right. Did they come in? Did this person use the gas ruse maybe earlier in the evening and then had just remained in the home until, I know Sherrill was on the phone until, what was it, 11:15, 11:30, but I mean, even then, if it's a gas emergency, that kind of opens up your window of opportunity
I thought at one point that maybe he was in the home and the girls surprised him.
right.
The only thing that makes me think that that's not a possibility is that one of the girls was not dressed, like they were undressed for bed.
Right. Taking their makeup off, beds were slept in.
So I don't think they would have gotten that far in the process if they walked in on their mother being held hostage by some guy.
I've also toyed around with, was Sherrill having a relationship that was maybe a little more discreet? You know, I'm just having a nice evening at home, gonna paint this dresser. Is she involved with someone and maybe isn't ready for her friends to know about it?
I think
That's a good point.
I think with a lot of the theories that involve the people that they knew the person, what leads me to believe that would not be the case is that people talk, and it's a fairly small circle we're talking about here. And according to a guy named Stephen Garrison, at a party, some people did talk and said that the women were dead and were buried somewhere, which led to 3 separate digs that they did. One of those digs, they did find human bones that were too old to test, and they also found part of a green vehicle of some sort. So that person talked. Who they said the person was that did the crime, that hasn't ever been let out or revealed.
One of the suspects that we haven't talked about was Larry Hall. He was an alleged serial killer known for frequenting Civil War reenactments. And according to Lori Howard, who was the former deputy at the time, Hall confessed to her and said the bodies were in the Mark Twain National Forest. But whenever she tried to communicate that to the Springfield Police Department, she said they really didn't want to hear about it. And he owned a green Dodge van. So he's right there on the top of my potential suspect lists.
And what was his relationship with the victims?
He claimed to have killed them. He didn't.
We don't know how
We
they
don't
were
know how
connected.
they might have been connected.
He was known to the police as a chronic confessor as well, just to throw that out there.
He was a Jeremy Jones.
Yeah, based on this guy, other things that I've read about him, I don't think he was sophisticated enough to be able to corral these 3 women. That's just my opinion. He's kind of he had a low IQ. When he was in the womb, his brother tried to eat him. There's a medical condition. I don't mean to be graphic, but there is a medical condition that I'm not a doctor, but I do know that is a thing. And that happened, which deprived him of air.
In the article that I read online, his statement to Deputy Howard was, "We killed them."
We killed
and,
them,
and so
yeah.
he implied that he was working with another individual. We don't know who that would have been. Maybe it was someone like Robert Koch.
It seems like somebody who would have it more together would maybe bring someone along who didn't quite have the intelligence to not follow direction and stuff. So
Well, Robert Craig Cox, to me, out of the suspects that we're looking at, just based on what we know about him, being in prison right now, he was convicted of murder in 1990, around, I think it was 1991, 1990. He was convicted of murder in Florida, sentenced to death. Sentence was overturned by the Florida Supreme Court, stating that the blood evidence wasn't gathered properly. And so once he was released, he had a sentence he had to finish in California for kidnapping. So we've got murder, we've got kidnapping in California, and then he's currently in prison for kidnapping and aggravated robbery.
Close to home.
All right, so this happened in Springfield in 1992. I can only imagine what effect that must have had on the community. I know what it would be like if this were to happen in our town today. Anybody know what it might have been like there in Springfield during that time?
Well, I wasn't in Springfield, but my best friend lived in Republic, so I know definitely it kind of put the kibosh on us being able to go to the Regency on Friday nights and go hang out the way that we had done before.
I was reading online that the whole town and really the whole region around Springfield basically just paused. Everybody was scared that they were going to be next. How could this happen? How do people just vanish? So it really had a big impact on the community.
Well, I think part of, the vanishing, we do have a huge interstate running right through Springfield. It would be super easy for somebody to jump on a highway and have them not just out of town,
Out of the country.
yeah, really quickly.
Yeah, you could certainly hop on I-44 and be out of Springfield and in St. Louis or
going the other way,
in
going
no
south.
time. Yeah.
When I think about this case here and being close to home, I think about also Tracy Pickett. I think about Sarah Burton, Ashley, and Laura. And the reason I think of those is that just like those cases, in the case that we're looking at tonight with Stacy, Suzie, and Sherrill, is to keep bringing them up, to keep saying their name, to keep letting people know that they haven't been forgotten. And I think that is the most important thing that we can do as a group here.
You're absolutely right, because this is still an unsolved cold case. Even though Sherrill and Suzie were declared legally dead in 97, there's still people out there that have info about this case. They've actually processed more than 5,000 tips, which has not led us to the answers that we need. But that volume is great. And there are more tips out there. There are people that know, like the gentleman who called Unsolved Mysteries and was disconnected. He's still out there somewhere.
And I'm sure that's why we're all here today, too. It's just to keep getting the word out, keep talking about it. I think the more we talk about these cases, about young women being victims, the more likely it is that someone else will.
Jennifer Judd's case, the case that we have out there right now, that's unsolved. There's so much evidence, even though the crime scene was trampled, there's so much potential evidence out there. So I think by saying her name as well and saying the names of these people, that's what keeps them alive in spirit.
I think for me, it's a good reminder to be aware of your surroundings and look out for your fellow women when you're out there. Who knows if, they were stalked and followed the night that this happened, but why was it them? And what makes them different from you or me or that woman filling up by herself at the gas station late at night, or somebody,
Right.
With their groceries, and makes you want to, really kind of look out for others. And, that's a reminder to you're powerful in your own abilities to protect yourself, but you have to be aware.
In this case, there is a $43,000 reward offered for information leading to the location of these women. So hopefully someone out there has some knowledge and can point us in the right direction.
Final thought.
After reviewing the case, what is the one detail or unanswered question that haunts you the most about this case?
I don't know if it's the one that haunts me the most, but we haven't really talked about it. And that is, in 2007, a investigative reporter by the name of Kathy Beard asked a man that owned a construction company to take a ground-penetrating radar machine and conduct some research in a parking garage at Cox Hospital in Springfield, Missouri. The reason that she did that was because a psychic had said that 3 women were buried there. Now, in 1992, that part of the parking garage was under construction. They took the ground-penetrating radar machine and they did it, and they found 3 anomalies that were the size of graves. 2 of them were side by side and 1 of them was perpendicular, and they reported that. If you go there and visit it today, that area is right there. It's got a little fence on either side of it, and they use it kind of for storage. But the police didn't take it seriously, not necessarily because it originated with the psychic, but they said that the machine that he used, ground penetrating radar, is typically used for when you're over dirt and you're measuring dirt and layers of dirt. This was measuring a layer of concrete and then dirt. So when you pour concrete, there could be some anomalies in that. But I would like to know what those anomalies are. That question really sticks out in my mind. And I think that it isn't cost effective, according to the Springfield Police Department, to do a dig.
I'm curious about the broken, like not the light bulb, the broken globe. Thank you, the broken globe. Like, I mean, it was swept up, but it was a detail that was there, you know.
It was really the only thing that was out of place in the house.
Exactly.
I'd like to know if the police took any fingerprints. I've never heard that come up. I know now. Let me just say, I am fully aware, because we've talked about it, that the friends and family went in and cleaned the crime scene. That doesn't mean that there still weren't fingerprints. Matter of fact, there were probably a lot of fingerprints. But you can eliminate people. That's something the police do all the time, is they eliminate people. And if you have prints left over, those are the ones you try to get matches on. So I'd really like to know if they did that. I guess I have a lot of questions I would ask the police if I had the opportunity. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at here.
I have a lot of questions too, especially around, you know, the crime scene and how they just seemingly gave up on it just because family had been there. The other question I have is, I wonder what the family suspects, or who they think the suspects are in the family, what their perspectives are and all of that. But, you know, the last thing is that, you know, I just want them to keep fighting, keep requesting answers, keep the case open, keep the law enforcement on their toes.
You know, with family, when you say family, the one family that we have heard from is Janice McCall, Stacy's mom. And I don't think that she has any idea who did anything. She just wants help solving it.
I wonder what happened like in days before, or like the people around them. There's a lot of things that were said about what things look like afterwards, but like in their plans before, does somebody know, or did anything out of the ordinary happen that may have been a cause for alarm that kind of got shifted or over, you know?
Like there might have been something happen that could have been a clue or a precipitator.
And did they have any new people in their lives?
Right.
That's always a question I have.
Well, and I even keep circling back to the trafficking theory, or is that just too far out? But just the fact that they were all three gone without a trace.
Or they could have ran out real quick to go get some, you know, if they all, like that they left everything. Hey, let's just run over here for a minute. And wherever was the over here they went to.
The middle of the night, though?
Well, if they're partying all night long and they've been hopping around, they just hopped over to another, and maybe that place wasn't the crime scene.
Maybe someone came and picked them up, although they probably wouldn't have left their cigarettes.
But I think that we already know that they got ready for bed and they actually went to bed. They changed into those clothes and they had used their beds. So
what got them out of bed?
Daisy only had one outfit with her besides her bikini for the water park, and that outfit was folded up. I don't know what she was wearing, but whatever she was wearing is what she probably left the house in, which was probably her underwear.
Probably, or borrowed clothes from her friend. That happens a lot. Just, hey, you can't borrow a shirt.
Borrow sleep. Yeah, maybe a t-shirt or something. Yeah, but
sure.
Not much.
Right.
And there's a chance, you know, that they were both wearing t-shirts. I mean, it's hard to say. I think that Stacy, the neighbor that made the report about the van and the young girl driving the van and the man in the back screaming. I mean, that is something that really just sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, that is odd. Makes me wonder what age the young girl was, if she could have been part of the graduation parties or anything.
She said
or even one of these girls.
She said that the girl, one of the neighbors said the girl resembled, thank you, Suzie, and looked terrified, was what the report said. Why these people waited several days to make that report to the police, they said they were afraid, but geez.
They were afraid.
It's always
they knew who
one
they
little
were.
something. You ever notice with all these cases, it's an insurance card. You know, it's just one little something that just throws up.
Stands between mystery and the answer.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, I attended the 30-year memorial service at the Victims Memorial Garden in Springfield. Stacy McCall's parents were present, and Chief Paul Williams gave a great message to honor the women. At the Victims Memorial Garden, there's a beautiful memorial bench that has their names engraved and date of birth. And it also says, what words can say when loved ones are taken away, know that you are loved. And there's many engraved bricks dedicated to the women, and one of them says, Stacy McCall, 25 years with no answers, someone knows, love you. So I hope that there can be justice while Stacy's parents are still with us, because they've just been such strong advocates all of these years. I just really hope that there will be answers. It's time.
It's time. And if you know anything about this case, please reach out to the Springfield Police Department. Even though they've received 5,000 tips, they would love a really credible one. Next week, we're going to be discussing the case of my friend, Michael Kroll. So you'll definitely want to tune into that so that we can explore his life and what happened to him. Till next time, this is Ozark Crime Watch. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.